Imagine the Republican and Democratic nominees for president being confrontational over political issues, but being respectful doing it. Our next guest, Joe Weston, author of Mastering Respectful Confrontation, wants to go to Washington and teach him to do that. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
How do you be respectfully confrontational?
That's a good question, and I've spent many years trying to unravel that. And what this book is, Mastering Respectful Confrontation, which I say is a guide to personal freedom and empowered collaborative engagement, is the summary of workshops that I've developed, this training that I've developed. And it's based on this idea that it's possible to stand in your power, speak your truth, and do that in a way where you're not going to get harmed and where other people aren't going to get harmed.
You don't think most people do that?
No,
There's a lot of confrontation in the world.
There's a lot of confrontation, and it's coming from a place of a lot of old values that I address in the book around power, around confrontation, conflict, and around aggression and assertiveness. Mm-hmm. And my feeling is because many of us have been brought up with the beliefs that confrontation and conflict are the same thing, and that aggression and assertiveness are the same thing, either we think we only have one option, which is, or two options, which is to be aggressive and create conflict. And if we don't want that, then we keep quiet and don't speak our truth. Mm-hmm. And this work is really about unraveling that and saying that it is possible to speak your truth. It is possible to stand up for your beliefs and do that in a way where you don't have to do it like many of our, like a lot of our examples have been, which is to fight or to hurt. Mm-hmm. So we're coming from I would say the 20th century was the pinnacle of the paradigm around win-lose, and nice guys finish last. And I believe in the 21st century, what I'm developing here is I say a new peacemaking coalition where nice guys do finish first, mm-hmm. and where it's possible to speak your truth and stand up for yourself and do it in a way where you can hear other people's side in argument. And I truly believe that we're moving into the age of collaboration. You know, if you look around and you see what's happening around the world with the economy, with governments, with the internet, even with cell phones, it's impossible for us to remain independent and isolated. Mm-hmm. We're moving into a time where we all have to connect and we all have to learn how to collaborate. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we weren't taught the vocabulary of collaboration. And so this book and this method offers a way to collaborate and learn that vocabulary in an empowered way.
Right. What makes you think that you have a chance to teach someone like a presidential nominee or a member of Congress? I know you said that's one of the reasons you're moving to D.C., is to actually talk to some of the people in power who make policy, who create confrontation, whose job is confrontation. I mean, the job of a political figure is confrontation. Do you think you have a chance to change the environment?
Well, I
hope. So did Barack.
I hope I do. And you know, he's a good example of that. Mm-hmm. He's trying his best to model respectful confrontation. So in this whole practice, confrontation is essential. So, and that's what I'm saying, is that if you can separate out conflict, the role of conflict is to break down relationship, in essence to disempower those around you. And I'm saying that confrontation is very powerful and requires a lot of assertiveness and speaking truth. But the goal of that is to deepen relationship, right, and to empower all involved.
Right, so give me a primer. What's the difference? Give me a concrete example, like in the current political environment, of conflict versus respectful confrontation.
How political can we get on this program?
It's my show. Well, you can get as political as you want.
Well, there are a number of people who enjoy tea, and they've created a party. Mm-hmm. And I would say that their way of doing policy is very conflict-oriented, which mm-hmm. is based on old values. Basically what they're doing is they're holding on to a system that's an old system, which is basically, I want to win, and I'm going to win at all costs. And if that means that you're going to lose, that's fine. And I can't listen to your views. There's no opening for creativity. There's no looking for new solutions to problems. Mm-hmm. I would say the alternative is to say, okay, so, you know, problems are complicated. The problems are very complicated. And I believe that we can't solve complicated problems with complicated solutions. Albert Einstein said that. He said that you can't solve current problems with the same consciousness that created those problems. We have to elevate our consciousness to be able to find new ways. And what I'm advocating in this book is that the solutions are really very simple. It's really about what I call open-hearted engagement, mm-hmm. which has to do with understanding and respect and humanity and compassion. Yep. I believe our president does that, And I believe that there are many Democrats who are trying to do that.
You don't think there's any Republicans who are trying?
I think there are. I think that what I think is interesting, I think what I would advocate, I lived in the Netherlands for 18 years, and so I experienced a parliamentary system and saw the benefits of that. I think the challenges we're having in this country is that we think we have two parties and that's it. And maybe there's another one growing and maybe two or three. What's nice about a parliamentary system is that there's dozens of parties and everyone feels like, the citizens feel like they have a voice.
Right.
So I think to be able to find alliances with Democrats and with Republicans who have values that are these new current values that are willing to collaborate and listen, I think would make an enormous amount of change to start changing those.
So you have given your seminars and your workshops here and in Europe. How many times have you come across, I don't know if it's a political figure or a business person, but someone who's not used to this hippy-tippy California, we are the world approach and just stands up and says, Joe, I live in the real world. This is not going to work.
Yeah.
Does that ever happen?
It does. I work with corporations.
And so how do you respectfully confront them?
Well, basically, the basic premise is I say thank you, because even if they're being aggressive, they're still communicating to me. They're speaking their truth. So I have to be able to listen that even though I may not like the way the message is being delivered, there's some truth in that for me to hear. I believe that's the crux of diversity and what we're moving into. If you were to ask me what is diversity, it's understanding that any object, if I take this object and I place it, that your perspective of it is going to be different from mine. It's the same object, but it's going to be from your point of view. And wars have been started because of that. So it's basically saying, that's my truth, and you say that's your truth. But if we can begin to see that everyone has their own view of that, the collective view of all of that is what comes closest to the truth of that object.
So you want to go to Palestine and solve that mess? I mean, you think they could do this book?
Let me start with Washington, D.C.
You think DC's easier?
Well, I think it might be.
I
think it might be. So really this work is about, it starts with just a willingness to listen. And I believe that I don't think that it's possible in one session to go to Congress and say this is change. I believe that what is going to really create lasting change and lasting peace is what I say about a peacemaking coalition is the day-to-day things. So peace is not going to be made on the battlefields anymore in the 21st century. It's not going to be even in the big conference rooms. It's going to be at the kitchen table. It's going to be at the line in the supermarket. It's going to be at work, where we can all be mindful of how are we communicating? How is our behavior getting in the way of really getting to truth and giving people a chance to speak that? You
like difficult challenges.
No, I love it.
I mean, you teach Buddhism to prison inmates.
Yes.
How's that going for you?
I love it. I love it, and they're having a grand old time.
But someone must have asked you to do that. It's not like just you showed up one day at Sing Sing and said, "I'm here to teach the Eightfold."
I knocked on the door.
You knocked on the door and said, "I'm here to teach the Eightfold Path." I mean.
Well, I belong, the Buddhist organization I belong to, there's an organization called the Liberation Prison Project, which is set up, and I've been writing to prisoners for a while now, and the woman who is the head of that, she asked me if I would go into the prisons. Usually it's the monks and the nuns that go in, but she thought that I would be able to do that. And my background, I come from New York City and grew up on the streets, had to fight, and my dad actually spent some time in prison when I was like around 12 years old, so I kind of know that environment. And that's where this all started. At a certain point, I just stopped fighting, and didn't make sense to me. And I spent my whole life exploring that. What is it? What is it? Even though we know better, even though we live in a culture where we have so many resources, we have so much information, we're technologically so advanced, what is it that keeps us reverting back to arguments and fights? And that's what my quest is.
And what you're saying is it's because we haven't had another option until now.
Exactly.
We've been speaking with Joe Weston, the author of Mastering Respectful Confrontation. I hope you'll confront your TV set next week and tune in again to 10%. I'm your host, David Perry.